Welcome, everybody. I'm Kelly Foley with Cover the Coast. I'm here with the two candidates from Halfmoon Bay Area B, Patrick Dickie and Justine Gabias. First of all, I'd like to acknowledge that this meeting is being held on the unceded lands of the Squamish and Shishel peoples, and I'm very grateful to be able to live and work on these lands. So I'm going to start off with just a bit of context. We're here to talk about housing and homelessness. The Sunshine Coast is facing an unprecedented crisis that's impacting all demographics in terms of housing. Young families, adults are leaving the coast because they can't afford to live here. It's having a really difficult impact on essential service providers, such as the hospital, as well as many local businesses, because they're short-staffed because of a lack of workforce housing for their staff. And there's also been a significant increase in homelessness and people living in unsafe conditions. So I just kind of wanted to sort of set the context of why we're having this conversation. So both Justine and Patrick are going to start off with kind of an opening statement. Patrick, do you want to go first?
Sure. Thanks, Kelly. Just wanted to shout out to everybody involved in this evening. You had to work hard to change venues and media production and stuff like that. So thanks for reorganizing. And yeah, just to introduce myself, as Kelly said, is Patrick Dickie. Been a longtime resident on the coast, 30 plus years, 24 of those years out in Halfmoon Bay. I started work up here like most people do. I worked in landscaping and silviculture and was fortunate enough in 2000 to start to work for the town of Gibsons, and worked in recreation for the past 20 years. Moved into the regional district in 2007 when they took over the aquatics operation on the coast, and retired in 2022. I sort of bring that up because my experience in working for the regional district in the town of Gibsons gave me some valuable insight into how the organization runs, expectations of management, and as I certainly at a staffing level. I sat on many committees while I was there. Health and safety was one I was on for a long time, and that's a real joint venture with management and staff, and always working towards better working conditions, and also what management will want, which would be more productivity and issues like that, and always working for harmony in the workforce. So, I plan to bring that experience to the board level, and continue that type of relationship with staff, a collaborative and inclusive relationship. So obviously here in this term, there's lots of big issues going on. We have water development and housing. We're going to talk mostly about the housing and development tonight. Water is foremost on everybody's mind because of the dire situation we find ourselves in. That's a big topic, and I would be happy to discuss in length water with anybody that would like to contact me. So feel free to do so. I just wanted to mention a couple of the issues in my area of Halfmoon Bay. Well, I guess the one that I'm going to give the priority to, and that's going to be the Cooper's Green Hall replacement, because of the funding that was given to the association. It has time limits on it, so there is a time frame on when we can complete this project. There's going to be information coming out on the 13th at the committee meeting, where the ideas are going to be presented by Shelley as to what our options are going to be for the hall. So I encourage everybody to watch that. And have Halfmoon Bay get together and complete this hall replacement project. So there we go, and I look forward to your questions tonight. Thanks.
Thank you, Patrick. All right, Justine.
Hi. Well, thank you, Kelly, for first of all, for the beautiful educational session that we all attended. That was really awesome and gave us a lot of insight. And then also for hosting this and for being so accommodating with moving everything to Zoom, which is, I guess, commonplace now. My name is Justine Gabias. I am a market gardener and a small business owner, and I live in the beautiful Welcome Woods area of Halfmoon Bay. My platform is, well, it's a little too too big to explain in 3 minutes, but please have a look at my website, votejustine.ca, so you can have a look at a little bit more about me and what I stand for. And I would say like my vision for Halfmoon Bay is for a vibrant, rural, sustainable, and connected Halfmoon Bay. And I think housing is such a big issue, and it touches on so many things that I think all of this housing kind of touches on all of like vibrant, rural, sustainable, and connected. But like mostly like what I want to talk about now is vibrant, because personally I moved to Halfmoon Bay 2.5 years ago with my partner. We're a young couple with not much money, renting in Vancouver, and we were able, by some miracle, to purchase a home in Halfmoon Bay, which now would be absolutely out of the question, wouldn't even be able to dream about it. And because we were so lucky, now Halfmoon Bay has a talented carpenter who works for a local company, and it has a market gardener who grows food for her community and is now running to be area director. So there is so much that we can gain from providing affordable housing opportunities to people from different socioeconomic backgrounds, from different, coming from different places with different skills. And we really need to put a big focus on that right now, because otherwise our coast is going to be hollowed out. Like we need people who are going to look after our seniors, after our kids, people who are going to drive our buses, people who are going to fix our roads, help us build houses. So we absolutely need to build housing that young people can afford, first-time home buyers can afford, young families can afford, and also provide dignity for everybody up and down the coast. Halfmoon Bay, we're a bit more remote. We don't see as much homelessness as Sechelt and Gibsons do, but really I'm committed to working with everybody at the board to support any projects that that come up, so we can be compassionate and provide housing for everybody.
Okay, lovely. Thank you.
Welcome.
So I'm going to start talking about some of the short-term strategies. And when I ask questions, what I think I'll do, I learned this from other candidates, is alternate who answers the question first.
Yeah.
Sure.
Okay, so we'll start with you, Justine. So Gibsons will, or when I say Gibsons, Halfmoon Bay, the regional districts in general, will not have a substantial increase in workforce housing or affordable housing for at least 2 to 3 years. We're just not going to have stock. So really the only options are for private long-term rentals or alternative housing. So that's the setup. So my question is, do you support the SCRD's, what they call the bed and breakfast regulation, which is basically a short-term rental regulation? And if so, why? And if not, what would you like to change about it?
Yeah, I support it. And, to be quite honest with you, it was in a recent conversation that I actually learned about it, because there are so many short-term rentals where there's no manager on site that I thought they were actually permitted when they are not. So I think the problem here is the enforcement, which is always difficult. So how do we make sure that it's not, the onus is not on neighbors to complain about party houses? So yeah, how do we maybe higher fines to actually deter bad behavior? Education, I guess. Maybe some folks who run these STRs don't know about this bylaw or regulation. And how do we incentivize them? How to reach them and ask and incentivize them turning these STRs into long-term rentals? So are we talking about vacancy tax? Are we talking about, like reducing property taxes if they decide to do that? So I do support it. I'm happy that it exists. Now it's just a matter of enforcing it. Okay,
thank you. Do you want me to repeat the question, Patrick, or are you good?
No, I think I'm okay. Thanks.
Okay.
Well, yeah, thanks for that question. Of the 3 local governments that went about controlling short-term rentals, I do think the SCRD got as close as you can to getting this right. with the inclusion of the phrase owner operated on site. So this is new in our bylaw 722. So they will no longer be able to operate single family units as an Airbnb. So those units would then either have to go onto the real estate market or into the rental market. And either of those things I see as good things. Flooding the market with that are good options for people. This also strikes the balance between those rental units, like I say, in the real estate market and continuing with our tourism market. You know, we had a thriving bed and breakfast accommodations here, which is much different than Airbnbs. You got somebody delivering you breakfast in the morning at a bed and breakfast. So generally those were much quieter. They always fit in with the community and there wasn't the disruption that you had with these party houses. So yes, it's a great addition and support is key. And yes, our bylaw is a complaint driven system, but let's look at this and realize that if you're complaining about a party house, you're not complaining about your neighbor. You're complaining about somebody who is coming into our neighborhood and acting disrespectfully. So it's not the same as a water infraction or a burning infraction. These aren't your neighbors. So thank you.
Okay, thank you. So I'm going to start with you, Patrick, for the next question. What other strategies do you support that would help to promote or protect long-term rentals?
Yeah, and thanks again. So I have thought about this a lot, and I'm not sure why this doesn't get as much consideration or talk about as much as it does, but the speculation and vacancy tax, I think must be in the conversation about housing. We have part-time residents on the coast that leave. We have landowners and developers that are developing units that sort of clearly look to the vacancy market, you know, the temporary housing for Airbnbs and such. So if we had a speculation tax, developers, homeowner or landowners might think differently about how they develop these subdivisions. Instead of building 4, 5, and 6 bedroom homes to accommodate the Airbnb, perhaps they will build the 1, 2, and 3 bedroom homes to accommodate local renters instead of marketing it out to Airbnbs. If they so choose, there's options for these people. If they have the luxury of affording 2 homes and want to leave the coast for that 6-month period, they could choose to have a carriage house. They could choose to have a secondary suite now, which is all allowed under the new zoning bylaws.
Mm-hmm.
And if they so choose not to participate in that, then they can pay the tax, quite frankly. And that tax could go into a housing fund, which would support transition homes, shelters, and the like of that. So that's how I see that support. Thanks.
Lovely. Do you want me to repeat that, Justine, the question?
Sure.
What other strategies do you support that will promote or protect long-term rentals?
I have to first apologize that I had to leave. It's not out of disrespect for Patrick. It's just my cat needed a timeout. I was being attacked on my deck. Yeah, I think with I like to work with what we already have and then and find quick and not too costly solutions to the problem, because we are in a pretty dire situation, so we need to act pretty urgently. So I would look at maybe I just touched on it in the previous question, would be if a property owner who runs an STR the right way, like they are on site, correct? Perhaps let's raise their property taxes. That is not, I don't see this as punitive, because that extra cost can be put on the guests. And then that extra property tax could help fund programs and affordable housing. And then if the person who is currently running an STR or who currently has a long-term rental, we could maybe look at reducing their property taxes. So incentivizing, I'm kind of bigger onto incentivizing as opposed to punishing. So we could try that and see if that moves the needle a little bit. And if not, we can look at other options. There's also, with the new bylaw 722, like allowing bigger auxiliary dwellings to be built. That would really give us a big opportunity to increase density where there already is density, where the land is already developed. So any homeowner that has the septic capacity to have an auxiliary dwelling, let's support them as much as possible. And so we're looking at things like maybe providing a footprint. SCRD could provide a footprint to property owners who want to build an auxiliary dwelling, something that's already been approved. The building permit could be issued very quickly. The local building companies would get very used to those footprints and would be able to build them very effectively and very quickly. So that would reduce costs. So finding creative ways, we really have to look at so many ways that we can address this issue. So I'm sure there's lots more ideas out there, and I'm really looking forward to hearing them.
Great, thank you, Justine. Okay, so last question in this section. I'm going to start with you, Justine, this time. Are you in support of amending land use bylaws to allow for alternative housing communities or alternative housing on private properties? So this would be tiny homes or mobile homes or even co-housing.
Yes, I think that would be, again, like we have to just look at everything and find creative ways. I think that would be really great. And I was thinking, like, wouldn't it be cool if we could lease vacant lots and then like turn those into like maybe a half-acre lot could have like 4 tiny homes or RVs, and like, would that be possible? Unfortunately, it looks like these like RVs, tiny homes, they're not legal permanent dwellings, so there's obstacles there. But I think with energy and with like a dedication, we could probably advocate to change that. And I think I heard that Tiny Homes Association was working on somebody with a building code to make them legal. So I think that would be a great opportunity to increase our affordable housing, and it wouldn't cost us that much. We just need that energy. And also on that, we can't be putting these like RVs or tiny homes outside too far away from the community. We need to make sure that they are part of the community, where there are services, where there are buses, so that they don't become, like, just so that they're actually effective. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Do you want me to repeat the question, Patrick?
I think I'm good, Kelly, thanks.
Okay.
So obviously I would support such a plan. Many people are choosing smaller houses by choice. The need for the half acre and the 2,024 square foot, 2,400 square foot houses is becoming a thing of the past. So absolutely, these are the type of communities you can look for in the future, and it's a matter of working with our planning department, collaboratively getting together and perhaps identifying areas where they are already zoned for larger lots that could accommodate the tiny homes, which are legal to put in now. There are tiny homes here, so that's not really an obstacle. There's an obstacle with mobile homes, but tiny homes are perfectly permittable to put in. So in a community like that, where you have a lot and you have more than one of these tiny homes, it's a great opportunity to add alternate power sources. I've looked into it for my own home. It's not effective for me to put solar power on my single family home, but it would be effective and cost effective for a grouping of houses to be sharing power sources like that, alternate power sources. So I see those as communities moving forward. It's unfortunate, the Roberts Creek situation and the mobile homes there. And those are the type of things that we need to avoid in the future. And I would really like to work with the planning department and identify areas where we can put these in to avoid any of the conflicts in existing neighborhoods. So yes, I would support that. I think it's a move to the future. Yes, thanks for that question.
Thank you. Okay, I'm going to move on to long-term strategies. So in order to provide diverse housing that meets the needs of all community members, many communities in BC are encouraging development of different types of housing, such as townhomes, apartment buildings, and as we talked about, auxiliary dwellings, which would obviously impact density. So my first question, and Patrick, I'll start with you. Would you support amending the OCP to allow for additional dwellings on private lots, such as coach houses, and the development of multi-family units, such as apartments and townhomes, etc., which would increase density?
Yes, great. Thanks for that question again. So I believe our new bylaw is going to help address some of that. But the 722 is going to allow secondary suites and auxiliary buildings by the bylaw. So if you have that space, that's a great revenue source for people coming in to help continue their home. The question of density is an interesting one. We need to find the appropriate areas to put the townhouses and the apartments and the multifamily units. Halfmoon Bay in my area is a rural area. There wasn't any built in the Welcome Woods, which is the most suitable area for that. Most of the outlying areas wouldn't necessarily fit that, but that's not saying that there isn't areas on the Sunshine Coast that would suit that. So I think that's a zoning bylaw issue that you need to look at area by area and get the density in where it can be supported, by transit, where it can be supported by amenities, where it can be where there can be social services available. And we've seen these areas, we know where they are. A lot of them are already areas that are onto sewer systems, which tends to fit density. And I think areas like the Welcome Woods can assist in that by what would be infilling in the auxiliary suites and secondary suites. So thanks for that.
Okay, lovely. Do you want me to repeat the question?
Oh, it's okay. You're
good?
doing
Okay.
so much already. Yes, I would like to, if elected, I would like to work with the community and look at our OCP, at our community plan, and identify these areas that we would like to see density in. As Patrick said, we are a rural area. There's we're very attached to our rural character, but how can we increase density without compromising what we love so much? So again, as Patrick said, the bylaw 722, that's going to give us a good opportunity to increase density in areas like Welcome Woods, like Secret Cove, hubs that are already existing. So that would be wonderful if we could get, even if we can get 20 more auxiliary dwellings, that would make such a huge difference in Halfmoon Bay. And then when it comes to apartment buildings, I don't personally see that in Halfmoon Bay, but perhaps townhomes. I would be interested to listen to the community and see like what would they find suitable and where would they like to see them. So townhomes, I think, could be a possibility. Co-housing also would be great. And but again, like the community needs to be involved, and we need to really sell it to the community that would be an amazing asset for us to have these areas. And then, well, then we have to find the land, but that's another thing.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so I'm going to talk about private developers, because part of the strategy, or sort of, I guess, I would say some of the barriers is getting private developers on board to create the type of housing that we need, the diverse type of housing. So my question is, and I'll start with you, Justine, is how we use the powers of government to encourage private developers to create the type of attainable housing that we need in the community.
Yeah. What are the powers of a local government? Yeah. Like how can we work with them and influence them and help them do the right thing? And I think incentivization, again, is a big one. I would like to work with developers who get it, who know, who understand the needs of the community, and then maybe through incentivizing, like perhaps offering to increase density where they want to develop if they commit to building homes that are affordable or for low income, that are sustainable. So kind of dangling that carrot of like, okay, you want to develop, well, we can support you if you build the housing we need, so we can support you by allowing you to build more. And any kind of support we can give them. I think that would probably I would hope that it would incentivize them to building housing that we actually need and can use. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. And Patrick?
Sure, thanks for that. Yeah, the local government, the regional district government is a little bit hamstrung in here as to what they can do. There are fast track approval processes when you're talking about affordable housing. Nonprofit organizations, there's been some very innovative things done here. Whistler, a regional district, recently with the Housing Authority was able to develop work housing in the area. So you had to be a worker in the area. So these are partnership arrangements that we'll need to work on. And again, zoning bylaws are difficult in this area, but in areas where they are zoned for density and landowners and developers plan to come in and build large subdivisions, say a Havies development, for example, with lots of housing in an area that suits really affordable housing and attainable housing. There needs to be bylaw requirements for a percentage of those areas to have affordable and attainable housing. Hard to incentivize a landowner and developer when their motivation is money, and the bigger the home, the more the money. So I think that we do need some regulation in this, and those might be a couple of ideas for it. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. This question might be a little bit too close to the last one, but we'll give it a try.
They're pretty similar.
Yeah, it is similar. There's other barriers, so let's see. What barriers exist right now to providing affordable and attainable housing? And what are your strategies for addressing these? And I'll start with you, Patrick.
Yeah, great. I mean, it is that they're close in questions because the problem is so it's similar in a lot of areas, and you can come at it in a few different ways. But obviously, the biggest barrier is land, ownership of land. The town of Gibsons was able to move forward with some affordable housing because they had the luxury of owning land. And that's a great job on them for using it and developing it in that way. So how does the regional district acquire land? There are ways, and it's not impossible. We need to work with the federal, the provincial, and the Sechelt Nation, and actively work towards acquiring land that is suitable for density and suitable for affordable housing. And those areas exist. They might not exist within the regional district, but that doesn't mean that they don't have a hand in this. There's many areas along the highway in Wilson Creek and Upfield Road that would really suit this. So they need to be proactive in it. They need to look to land agreements, leases. They need to consider land swaps for perhaps an area where they could develop and trade forest tenure. These are not unheard of suggestions. And I think that these are a few things that we could work towards in partnerships. So
okay, thank you. Do you want me to repeat that?
Sure.
So just talking about what barriers exist to providing affordable or attainable housing, and what are your strategies to address those?
Yeah, well, as Patrick said in the previous question, there's a lot, whoop, that wasn't me, it wasn't my cat. There's less of an appetite for like developers don't have as much of an appetite to create these affordable units. Again, like way more money into big pieces of land with big houses on them. And then the cost of land is very expensive, and building houses has become very expensive too. So how are we able to afford to build affordable housing for people? I do understand that it is not necessarily the jurisdiction of the SCRD to build affordable housing, but how can we support, how can we advocate, how can we lobby senior government, federal, provincial, to fund and support these very like much needed affordable housing developments? And then, I mean, another strategy would be to work with community groups. I mean, with Cover the Coast, it's great. Sunshine Coast Affordable Housing Society also, and see how we can support them. And yeah, like acquiring land is a big, difficult job. That doesn't mean that it cannot be done. So, you know, something to look at for sure, so that we can, that could be a huge support for for the community groups who want to build this affordable housing.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, that was my dog, by the way.
Oh, pets and Zoom.
We have a huge bear that keeps coming in our
Oh,
backyard,
really?
and she just, yeah.
On high alert.
This is a bit of kind of a segue into what you were talking about with working with the nonprofit sector.
Mhm.
So kind of building on what you were just talking about, what strategies do you have to support that sector in terms of helping to provide housing and support services for people in our community who are homeless?
Right. I start, right? It's my turn.
Yes, yeah.
Yes. Well, I would, I would start with talking to Cover the Coast, talking to community groups and associations who have that at heart and who have done a lot of work about that, and then see how can and talk to you and say like, how can I support you? How can I be an ally for you? So is that advocacy is an easy one. Doesn't cost much money. So like really informing people and lobbying other governments and working at the board table together in order to solve the problem as much as possible. I mean, if nonprofits have to pay property taxes, how can we reduce those? And then it'd be interesting also to help create like a fast lane for to fast track development permits for projects that meet a certain defined need. So if there's a project for say like a homeless shelter, like how can we help this like happen really quickly? How can we support but so I'm really interested to speaking with advocacy groups and seeing like how can local governments, where's that power, how can we be allies and help you solve this crisis?
Okay, thank you. Patrick?
Great, thanks, Kelly. Sure. When I read this question, I wasn't quite sure of an answer for it because it kind of I kind of looked at it in a couple of ways. So, to try and answer it, I would suggest that in building, if we're talking about building those type of shelters, then again, through a housing authority, the regional district can't do this, but there are now programs in other districts that have formed housing authorities, so they could work with low-cost loans, they could work with fast tracking development permits and those type of issues if we're talking about actually building the shelters. If we're talking about a way to support the existing shelters and homes that are around, then I go back to my vacancy and speculation tax. That's where that fund would go, and it would go into supporting organizations that are working closely with shelters, with transition homes, transitional living. That's how we can support. This tax can be in immediately. January, we could start implementing that tax. Communities are doing it and it is working. It's been successful in creating housing markets and creating revenue for shelters just like this. So that's two strategies for that that the government could use. So thanks.
Okay, we're at our last question. So this is a tricky one, I think. I haven't figured it out yet myself. So in the past, when there's a supportive housing development or a multifamily development, which is really what we're needing in our communities to make it affordable for people, there has been significant pushback from the community. So the question is, what ideas do you have to ensure and encourage community input, which is really important, while ensuring that NIMBYism doesn't prevent progress on, supporting people in our community to provide housing? So you're up first, Patrick, on this one.
Oh, okay, great. This is just such an issue that yes, we need to deal with. It's unfortunate that it happens, and typically almost every time it does. It's really an education process. These aren't bad people. These are people down on their luck, and we're all a quick slip, trip, and a fall away from being there ourselves. And I think people need to recognize this. These are people that are trying to regain their foothold. that are really a part of the community and are looking for support. I think you also need to look at where you're putting these. And again, you know, affordable housing and attainable housing, we recognize the needs and where that needs to be. And these would fit into those locations, transit, you know, access to amenities and social services. But it is really an education process. And the more we can be proactive about that now, and not just when a zoning application comes in, and start our campaign then. This needs to be an ongoing campaign about education, and letting people know that these are our neighbors. They're here to improve their life and be in the community. So we need to be supportive. We need to be inclusive if that's part of our OCP, and just accept this into our community. The more we work together, the better the community is. So let's work together and not try to divide. Continue that education process. Thanks.
Thank you, Patrick. Okay, Justine.
Hi. I think pushback happens often when there's people can't see what it will look like, or I think the more information we can give people, the more we can describe what it would be like, and the more we can describe the effects of it and the positive impact that it would have on our community. I think people could really turn around. I think it's the knee-jerk reaction a lot of the time, to be like, no, I don't want this, but you know, like, but wait, like, let's, you know, like, let me explain what it would be like, what it would look like, how it would impact you if it does, and how it would impact the community at large. As Patrick so beautifully said, like, it is the people who require these housing, they're not, you know, they're not bad people. They're just like us, and they just had you know, perhaps tough luck, and we need to be compassionate. But I think, yeah, like, really kind of like just making people see what it would be like, and really inform them. I think that would be such a powerful tool, because everybody's afraid of what they don't know and what they've never experienced. But if you can describe it to them and really show them what it would be like, I think there'd be a lot less pushback, in my opinion.
Okay, thank you. I agree. So that's it for my questions. Do either of you, would you like to have a closing statement, or is there anything that I missed that you would like to talk about before we close up here?
Oh, I guess this is my turn to go first.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Well, I don't have a closing statement prepared. Thank you very much. I think the work you do is really admirable and amazing, and so needed. And there, like, as a person, as a private citizen, I'm committed to doing whatever I can to help. And if I'm elected, then I'll have maybe a little bit more power. And then I would love to work with folks like you and work collaboratively with everybody at the board table, with the staff at the SCRD. There's urgency here. We really need to address this issue, like, right now, before it's too late, because we do need essential workers. Like, we want the coast to remain livable, and for that we need to have people to offer services and take care of us. So we need to really hunker down and get it sorted as fast as possible, and I'm committed to that.
Okay, thank you, Justine. Patrick?
Yeah, I didn't really prepare a closing statement either. So I again, thank you, Kelly, for putting this on and organizing all that. And, you know, just to continue on our topic from this evening, yeah, absolutely. The information session that you put on, Urban Matters, these are organizations that are really in touch with this problem on the coast. I have been trying to educate myself as much as I can on the matter, and I think I have some ideas on how to move forward with it. But obviously, working so closely with yourself and the organization to steer our community into being that inclusive community that we all look forward to. Yeah, that's what I'm going to look forward to doing. A collaborative relationship between governments and organizations on the coast and just work towards making this a wonderful place, better than it is today. So thanks for your time.
Wonderful. Well, thank you both for taking the time to do this.
It was lightning speed. It was so fast.
It's lightning speed, went right by fast, and it was great conversations, wonderful input from you both.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I guess it's kind of an au revoir, and best of luck to both of you.